believe me, this is actually some large square footage. This whole center of the building on 3 floors can be used by anyone who wants to use it in the community. The only idea here is that we have a program for the elementary school. We can't really invent rooms. They have to be rooms, for the most part, that we can use flexibly in different ways. But that really leaves a lot of opportunity. On the first floor here, sorry about that, David. On the first floor here, we have a stage and a very large, what we call a cafeteria, but it's really a cafetorium. And cafetoriums, this is a 2-story space. And this 2-story space we'll look at a little closer, but the idea of it is it has a kitchen that services it. It has a platform stage. It has access to the outside. And it's quite a large space because it can sit 450 people at tables. And so as you can imagine, that's a fairly large space. And being 2 stories tall means that we can acoustically set it up for music and other events. Wonderful place for all kinds of events and meetings for everyone in town. We also have a media center on the first 2 floors. And that's another place where if we opened it up, it's a place where people could have meetings, could have conference, can have, it can open up. So I just wanted you to know that that's another possibility. If you go to the 2nd floor, there's a couple of big open large stairs that go through the building up the floors. So you would never get lost as where you're going. But also I want you all to know that we actually have 2 elevators, one on either side for the school. One of the reasons we do that is for accessibility, so that everybody has visual and connect and access. But anybody who comes in from the outside has, whether they're in a wheelchair or any other kind of impairment, they have direct access to all those floors going up. And it's very easy to use and very easy to see. So I just want everyone to know that. On this floor, you're looking at the 2nd story of the cafeteria or cafetorium, but there's a media center, also with the spaces that could be shared. And it also has a couple of really great art rooms, really good sized art rooms that have wonderful windows and views, and plenty of circulation and kind of display space all through. Then on the 3rd floor, and as you can see, I'm kind of overlooking the school areas on the side. There are possibilities that those school areas and classrooms can be used, especially for camps in the summer and things like that. But right now, I'm just focusing on the spaces that typically could be used by all of you. On the very 3rd floor is where we put the large gymnasium space. And we do that because this is a fairly tight site where, in order to, by stacking the gymnasium on top of the cafetorium, we have more open space outside. But it's actually wonderful because you really just go up a couple flights of stairs or elevator, and you're in a gymnasium that's a solid 9,000 square feet. So it's big enough for a high school sized gym and then quite a bit. It won't have, right now, it won't have bleachers and things like that. It's for kids, but it could be used for so many different things. It's also, because it's such a big space, it could be used for large events. And also, on that last level, we have an art maker / innovation space. And then we have access to a roof terrace. And this roof terrace, we kind of see it as an innovation terrace, but like we can see putting growies and things. We're going to look at some photos of some spaces that have been done by us and others, just to kind of wet your whistle as to the kind of things that you could use here. We know that most people haven't seen these wonderful things. So really, beyond the site, any of these projects begin with the entrance. And the entrance, we're writing community entrance. Because while it is an entrance for the kids, It is, and the two different schools, the upper and the lower school, it is also a nighttime, weekend, day, morning. It's an entrance for everybody. And some of the things we're trying to show you with elementary schools are the ideas having covered areas in front, of having it very playful and good colors and signage, so it really welcoming, and having seating and areas out front of the building as well that are both protective, but also good for everybody for being dropped off and for the for rain, things like that. We also have vestibules that are security vestibules so that a person buzzes in, they go in and they can't go any further unless they're allowed into the next level and the next level. So it's very much about security as well. But our goal here is to create some outdoor space by the entrance for people and for community, and to connect and make it welcoming. The next page here, and that's kind of community space, is the inside of the building when you first walk in. And what's interesting here is, sure, a building like this could feel like a lobby, you know, and with stairs and things like that, and usually a space like this would connect the gymnasium, the cafetorium, things like that, these public spaces. But the one on the left is kind of more of a middle school, but on the right, there's a design that's a little more like a little cozier, and it feels a little more intimate and a little more for little kids. See the scale of it and all of that. And I like this. I like this picture. It shows kind of seating areas and a little sunken area and places for display. And you can see, and there's light coming in and things like that. And it just feels very welcoming. And one can imagine that whenever you go into a building like this, you could use it and wait for people and use it for different things. The last picture on the very bottom, it's small, but the idea is that any space that we create, even if it's in kind of what you would call an entry or lobby area, if it's big enough, you can set it up and we can have whiteboards and we can use it for anything. Everything wants to be able to be used flexibly, collaboratively, and by the community. Next. A third kind of category is one of probably the most exciting with this elementary school, because we're going to be creating a two-story cafetorium, which will have a stage. It won't be like a high school stage with a fly and all of that. It's more of a platform, but it's certainly big enough and open enough for all kinds of events and meetings and things like that. And a nice big space that can be used for tables or chairs or moved around in all different ways. I personally really love the picture on the right and the top. That's T2. What I love about it is it still has it's open and light and with windows and things like that, but it also has the feel of an elementary school, but it's also very usable by the public. And I like that. I think that really meets a wonderful mark right there. But there's a lot of different ways to create this kind of space, and we're going to make it as flexible as possible. And with acoustics and with lighting, we can make it very flexible for different kinds of events, like some music or even spoken word or even a dance or anything like that, or movies. And another form of community possibilities on the next slide is using the media center. Now in our building, we're actually going to have 2 floors of media center, one for the smaller kids and one for the slightly larger. And there's a lot of different ways to do this, but you can imagine that if you have smaller groups, a board meeting or trustees or anything like that, it's a wonderful place to go and use the spaces for anything you want to use. And it's especially great for kids, but while the kids aren't there, there's no telling what you could use it for. It's great space. It also will have plenty of technology involved. So if we wanted to have areas where adults could come in the weekends and stuff and learn and have classes and things like that, wonderful opportunity for that as well. The next one is the idea of the gymnasium. So we have this very large gymnasium. It's very tall, so you can play basketball, but it's not meant to be like the field house at the high school. It's meant to be a little more flexible and a little more for everything. So if somebody did want to play pickleball, it's perfect for that. If somebody, you know, but it'll have windows and things like that as well. So it's a little less of a serious space, but it is quite large. Here I like, we also like to try to daylight it from above. So bring light in from above so that it has real presence. And you can see that it could be made fun, it could be made very useful, and it could be used by everyone. Next. And then the last kind of idea, when we talked about those art spaces on the second floor, but also the makerspace on the upper floor with the terrace, is that maybe this is a space that could be used by people on the weekend for a robotics class or innovation in different ways. You just need some storage and you can use these spaces. The picture on the upper right is this idea of a makerspace with a big garage door or a door that opens out onto a terrace. And the picture on the left is that terrace. And what I love about it is how they're showing all these planters, because we can do that, planters, and they're doing seedlings, and they're doing all kinds of things on that terrace that are not just technical but also you're making plants. And then on the bottom is the idea that you can have makerspace anywhere. It can be in the wide corridor and stuff like that. If we build it right, we can make it so people can do things in different ways. So I just wanted to open up your minds by seeing these kinds of spaces that are in elementary schools that are designed for kids, but can certainly be used by adults as well and anyone else. Next. So one of the ways I thought we could do this if people start raising their hands to have ideas is to brainstorm, tell us who you are and what you're thinking about. And let's see if there are ways that all the different groups and different uses can be integrated and used in the site so we can design it in a flexible way if possible. So we've blown up this first page here is the first floor plan, the center, which is really the community space. And you can see this. Now, I also have the second and the third floor if anybody wants to look at different spaces. So what I would suggest is that people raise their hand or contact Katie, and let's get started with your ideas.
They can email SBC email as well.
Mhm.
That way, all of them emails will come directly to the group, to the school building community committee, instead of going straight to Katie or think she's going to get bombarded.
Suzanne, would you like to start?
I'm gonna start just as Gina Bush. She's the acting director at the senior center, and she couldn't be here tonight, but she sent me an email and talked a lot about some things that the seniors are lacking in their current location that they desire, and if this building could meet any of those needs, it would be awesome. So first and foremost, she was looking for a pickleball court, and I was just thinking, like when Lee said the gym could be play pickleball here, that got me thinking that maybe if we could have some sort of storage area for the senior center so they could have portable pickleball courts and equipment there, that would be great. And she also mentioned using the gyms in general for other programs that they might want to do, like yoga. And so maybe in their storage closet, they could store their mats and some equipment. So I was just thinking of that. She also indicated that they would love an indoor walking space, and I don't know if there's a way to make that in this building or not. Performing arts was really important to a performing arts space was something she mentioned. And then the art studio, photo lab, or computer lab for seniors to teach other seniors some classes. So those were some ideas that maybe there was a way to have some storage in the makerspace for them, in the makerspace room for them. I don't know. So that's basically the things Gina was talking about for the seniors. And then I want to add my own 2 cents. It would be nice if we could provide parking close by for seniors. So keeping those parking spaces that are directly across from the school would be really great. My 2 cents. That's all I have, Katie.
Thank you, Suzanne. Martha, did you want to add something?
Sure. One, Suzanne, is we should probably get them hooked up with the high school. Some of those things we could do at the high school, right?
Yeah, I think she was just saying right now they're not, they used to use the gym at the high school, but the high school sort of changed the
Yeah.
rules about not letting people in during the day at all, which I'm sure the elementary school might have the same rules. But yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, we can look at some of those just because I always want to like any problems we can solve now, let's solve now, right? For sure. One of the ideas I had is that it would be great to have for families that, and also for the school when they're using the outdoor areas, if there were bathrooms that were accessible from the outside. So when there's a soccer game going on the weekend or people using the playground, I think that would be really helpful for community use. And then the other is at times people want to rent just a room or space to be able to like have a birthday party or something like that. I think that might be useful for kids, like a kid birthday party, just for like a room. It could be the gym, it could be anywhere actually.
Martha, another thing that I remember you mentioning at one of the school building committee meetings, and this has more to do with the outdoor space, is you were talking about families who might walk to school to pick their kids up. And if there was some littler kid-friendly area outside of the school where, you know, parents could have their littles while they wait for their elementary age kids.
I
But
would love, yeah, if there is a space, it wouldn't have to even be that large, but like a toddler playground, that's an outdoor piece again, but somewhere where the toddler 12-month to 3-year-old group, which can get plowed over at the elementary area, like it would be nice to have a little area like that. I know other schools do have that. It wouldn't even have to be near the school. It could even be over by the soccer field, and it wouldn't have to be that big because they're little.
I actually wrote inside and outside because in the lobby areas, there's going to be
Yeah.
a place and everybody kind
Maybe
of wants it to
one
be the gathering area. If you came with your to see a bigger kid and you have your smaller kids with you, there you have it.
That would be really great. I think that's a great idea. I also think that outdoor balcony space area might be useful. Like someone may want to rent that for I don't know. Now
I was thinking, I was thinking the same thing, Martha. And then I was thinking the furniture that gets chosen to be put in that makerspace, I think making sure it's really modular or movable so that if people do want to sort of do like an indoor outdoor fundraiser or something up
Yeah,
there,
you could do
like,
that.
like it would be cool to be able to offer, you know, not having permanent tables or just something that it could be used for different kinds of events.
Well, the PTOs like to do fundraiser events. Like it'd be really
Right.
nice to be able to do that. The other thing is we've used it, and we've had to. Well, currently we have to use the middle school or high school, but I know like Hadley has always had like a spectacular, so they've had like a little, a family friendly dance for the kids, like a little Halloween thing. So I know that will be really nice for the space for PTOs to be able to utilize for that and not having to actually have the kids use a different space. They could use their own school. So I would say the PTOs probably will be interested in this. I know basketball, the Swampscott Nahant youth basketball, I'm sure will want to use those courts, for basketball rentals and for games if they could for the younger kids.
Speaking of the PTOs, I know that at Clark, at least, that the PTO has a good amount of storage up in the attic for some of the activities that they run. Like, you know, they have outdoor events for kids, they have indoor events for kids, they have all sorts of things. So having some sort of storage area for PTOs might be an important thing. And also, Martha, I was thinking about extended day, like if they had some storage space maybe or something, because I know that there's like specific clubs that are run sometimes after school for extended day that have like specific sewing or something like that. Like if they had a place, and maybe that could be part of the makerspace storage, at least the extended day stuff could be part of that. But I was thinking that that's another group that utilizes the schools in the off times that is often like regulated to a bookcase in the hallway or something.
Right.
Okay, Martha, did we talk about like a family resource center?
We do on the first floor. You can see that the first floor is open.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yep. So we do have that space dedicated for informational resources for our students with disabilities or any sort of need that we might have, and to welcome new families too, especially.
So we have quite a few attendees here tonight. What would be your dreams for this space? What is something that you think Swampscott is currently lacking in terms of a community space? I happened to be looking at Facebook the other day and saw something about like a performance art space, or and I love the idea of the seniors being able to come in and do things. What are some of your dreams? Like, what's something you wish the town had?
Does everybody know how to raise their hand or to contact you to speak? Participants and attendees? Oh, there's a hand. Yay.
Oh, hello, Miss Strauss. You can
I
unmute
have to mute myself, I know. Hi, everyone. So I have been listening in on your meetings. I love, well, let me just explain what I'm looking at. As you know, I'm looking at Park League in the summer. That's held at both Clark and at Stanley every summer. And we've been sort of relegated to only outdoor space. And this would be nice if we could use indoor space. This past summer, I was expanding the program to be not just if it rains, you know, we cancel for the day, and it was going to be rain or shine. So it would be more helpful for parents that had to work, and it was, you know, a steady place for their kids to go. So, but the problem that I've had in the past is that the schools are usually doing a lot of work and they store a lot of stuff in the cafeteria. With this large cafeteria space, it would be nice to be able to use that in the summer so that it could be a great place for parents to be able to send their kids in the summer and not have to worry that they have to find alternative arrangements when it rains.
Danielle, what was the name of the program?
So I'm the Town of Swampscott's recreation director.
Yeah.
So I actually run a lot of programs, both in the winter and in the summer, as well as events throughout the year. So any space that I can get, I will use. But this particular one that I'm talking about is a summer just recreation program. It's called Park League. And the kids, Park League, the kids come and they're grouped by age, and they go in stations. So they might start out with arts and crafts, and then they move to games, and then they move to sports, and then we have free time and we have snack, but it's all held outdoors. So it would be really nice to be able to use the building so that we wouldn't have to worry about rain, and that we could bring the kids inside to do arts and crafts or sports or whatever we're doing.
This
The
is
other
going to
thing-
be this is going to be a game changer for you.
Mhm.
I mean, this is just completely perfect for what you're talking about.
The other thing I would love to be able to use is the kitchen. There's a need for kids to learn how to cook and sew and do those kinds of things, but there's not time in the school day to teach them that anymore. So that would be great. I know it depends on the contract with the food service company, but that would be a great space to use also. And the terrace, I can see doing events up there. It's a nice space.
Let me go down the road of this food a little bit. I remember in an earlier meeting that we had when people were talking about community use, that people were looking for a place for food, for learning about food and being able to have classes and things like that. How can that help, or how can we make that work for you? If anybody thinks about that.
I think, well, right now I'm doing cooking classes online for both middle school kids and adults through Zoom. It would be great to be able to do them in person. During the summer, I have had middle school cooking classes in the kitchen at the middle school, and but have not done it at an elementary level. And I have done them at an adult level. The problem that I run into sometimes is access to the kitchen. So it would be nice if we kept that in mind when we, I don't know how to put it, negotiate with our food service company.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's a way to take a little piece of it, kind of turn it upside, backwards. Do you know what I mean? Or something like that. Let's look at that.
We have a couple of questions in the question and answer. So Tyler, I can ask these for you, or you can come off of mute. We can bring you over. So if you want to come off of mute, you can just raise your hand. Otherwise, we can just ask for you.
So oh, hi, Tyler. Great. I'm glad you're there. Christina will unmute you while I just transition into your kitchen question, because I want to put those two together, and then you can ask your other two awesome questions. Tyler first asked if the kitchen could be partitioned so there's a back and a front, so that like one section could be used for cooking classes without getting it commingled with the food service industry. Which was a great question. And Tyler, feel free to elaborate on that.
Hello. Yeah, I asked that knowing that we've done that on other projects. Hello, everybody. I haven't spoken to you all in a little while. I was a pretty vocal participant in some of the earlier meetings, and so I remember all of you. So thank you again for taking all the time that you have been to advance this.
Welcome back, Tyler.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, we've had success on other projects where we have kind of created zones within the kitchen that are, in that case, more used for like a home ec kind of programming that that serves the actual school. But I could see where that could easily be, utilized for the community as well. I think that's actually a great program use. And that then ties to some of my other questions, is just not knowing, I don't have a child who's gone through all of the ages in Swampscott, so I'm just not as familiar with all the other spaces at the high school and the middle school. And I guess I'm asking about how these kinds of spaces could fill a void or a gap that those don't. You know, we talked, there's certainly a big gym at the high school, but it sounds like there are things that doesn't accomplish. What might those things be? So this is not a suggestion, but more just trying to understand it in context. And then I was also, this is not a question for the architects, but a question for everybody about how are these spaces open to the community? What times are they open? What's the process? And you know, how open do we envision this school to be? I'm assuming that it's outside of school hours. So that's sort of a couple questions there.
Well, I can answer a little bit about the high school, like some of the spaces. I don't think that it's so much a missing spaces as a need for more of them. There are so many people who want to use a gym in town, and we have the high school gym and all of the high school teams, and the middle school gym and all of the middle school teams, and then everyone K through 5 who would love to get into a basketball place and love to get on a court or love to have that open space and do something with it. So in some cases, it's not that there isn't already a space that does it. It's just that there's not enough spaces that do that. And this would be an excellent addition to that. But Martha, did you want to speak more about like the how to use spaces in the school district, how that process goes?
Yeah, I was gonna talk a little bit about those facility rental process. So, you know, our facilities are available for rent. But as Katie just mentioned, our biggest problem is capacity and use first and foremost by students and our athletic teams. So we do have limited capacity and space for renting out our gyms. And we do partner very closely with the rec department. Danielle offers some great leagues, basketball. There was a rec basketball league, and that might have been with Nahant as well. So we do have limited capacity, but there is a process to rent the facilities. And then I also wanted to touch upon there's a lot of discussion about the kitchen and food service, and we do outsource our food service program to Chartwells. They've been a great partner with Swampscott for many, many years now. And our food service director is very excited about the new kitchen, and a lot of the ideas that have been tossed about tonight are things that she has been thinking about as well. How do we get more children into the kitchen, you know, cooking, observing cooking, helping cook? So I think very, very exciting time for us. And one of the questions, Tyler, that you had asked about identifying things that we don't have at the elementary schools now, we don't have kitchens at the elementary schools now. Many people already know this, but lunch is prepared at the middle school and carried over there by a van to the various elementary schools. So having a full service kitchen on site in this building is a huge win for all of us.
I want to bring up something about, you know, the idea of food, you know, to table, and the idea that you start to have some garden kind of things going on, or you know, where you might grow some tomatoes up on the terrace and you can kind of eat, you know, show how you prepare them and all that kind of stuff. It's a wonder, those are wonderful ideas that many, many, many other schools can do.
Martha Raymond, did you want to add?
I was just gonna, confirm like what Martha said about the inadequate spaces at the elementary schools for in the gym. There really are no gyms. They're just wholly inadequate, and so a lot of times our elementary students who want to play basketball or indoor sports are going. They have to go to Nahant. They had to go to Danvers Indoor Sports. They have to go to the YMCA. So it'd be nice to have some community spaces where those sports could actually occur. As for hours, I know when we're talking about that, I mean, I don't think it'd be any different than what, you know, we currently do, right? So there might be some after school hours. I know if we have an extended day program next year, usually it starts a little before 7 and ends at 6. And if there's evening sports, you know, I know just from having my own kids here in town, usually by 9 things are done if they're happening. It would be, and that's really small, but just like a team that's practicing. And in the summer, I know at least our extended school year programming, which occurs for students with disabilities, that's usually from 8 to 1, and that occurs now in our schools. So that's kind of the hours that I know about summer, and that runs usually 6 weeks. So those are some of the things I do know about now in terms of how often would the building be in use.
Am I still unmuted? Can you
Yes,
hear
Tyler,
me?
still are.
yes,
Okay. If no one else has other questions, something that I was thinking about as you were showing some of those images, that I guess is a challenge, but also an opportunity. As an elementary school, you're designing this for elementary students at a small scale, right? You're thinking about really small little spaces that are intimate and suited to those kids. But then we're now talking about community use, which is a different kind of user group. These are, adults and hopefully also community use by kids. But I just was wondering how to tackle that challenge of these different scales of users. This is more of a, not you have to answer this right now, but just a question about design and the feel of these spaces. What is our hope for the kind of spaces that we envision to be both welcoming to school age kids, little kids, kindergartners, as well as seniors, huge age range.
well, I think it's kind of, Tyler, you're an architect, so you're thinking like this. I think that the actual sizes of the spaces are pretty large, because even the classrooms are 900 square, the regular classrooms are 900 square feet for flexibility. And most of the building is about flexibility, except for some of the admin spaces and stuff that look like little rooms. I think it has a lot to do with furnishings. Having and other people who have experience with this, when we look at furnishings, we want to be as flexible, movable, and adaptable as possible. So you might have tables in the art room, and then there might be some easy way that they can be, lifted up a little bit, or the stools can be, extended up or down, things like that. And even in the cafetorium, we've already talked about, sitting on chairs versus sitting at the tables and things like that. We have to be clever. We have to be really thoughtful, but adjustability is really key. And it has to be simple enough that people will actually do it. And then spaces just really have to be made so that you can use them for like 6 different things rather than really focused on just one thing. Like the cafetorium, the acoustics has to work for a small play and for loud music. And for cafeteria, when kids are eating and it's really loud then, you know what I mean? And it just has to be somehow like kind of like evened out and figured out so that it works for a lot of different things.
That even probably extends to sort of materiality, use of color in the space. I imagine the kind of situation where you go into your kid's daycare center for a parent-teacher conference. You have to sit on these tiny little chairs. You can't quite, manage, and everything is, primary colors. That probably isn't the most suitable space for a fundraiser where people might be getting dressed up. And so, I would imagine that instead of providing that kind of interest and character through natural materials and things that are going to be more timeless, and are going to be as interesting to a first grader as they are to a senior. So it kind of gets again to the quality and the feel of the spaces.
I think that's awesome because when we thought about already, when we're thinking about the spaces, we keep thinking about Swampscott and the ocean and the colors that you find in a place like Swampscott and the ocean and the beach and the rocks and the, you know, and that might be something that is symbolic for a lot of people rather than just for what we think little kids like. And I stress what we think little kids like when, you know, it's mostly about scale and symbol for them. Thanks.
I love what Tyler's saying. Like, I like that whole idea of making sort of the middle space, the community part of the building, sort of a little bit more neutral in a way. And, you know, I know we talked a long time ago about paying homage to the 4 elementary schools that were in Swampscott somehow with some sort of art or some sort of tribute to Clark, Stanley, Hadley, and Michon somehow, and thinking about historical pictures and representation or community art in the community part of the building. And then where we can lock off the classroom wings, like each one of those could sort of have a more of a primary school feel to them somehow. Like differentiating the building that way is kind of an interesting idea.
Referring back to that, like multimodal and using spaces in a multitude of ways. Lee, could you just speak about what Suzanne just said in terms of how we make this community space designated for the community and they don't wander throughout the whole building? Like how are we keeping the building secure and the classrooms secure and student information and all of that secure while allowing the community access to these more open spaces?
Well, of course, you know, we're just starting to really look at all that, but it's let's see if I have this draw. Sorry. We're just starting to look at this, but I think that it's not that complicated because, as we said, we have we're going to close off the first possibility and obvious thing is we can close off the 2 sides on every single floor. So if you're a person who's visiting into the school, you come in, and if all we really need to have is either open it up or we need to have someone who is able to monitor you just right here and right here. It may be that at night you only open up one of the entries. Do you know what I mean? I mean, people will figure that out pretty fast, you know, that this is the upper school entries, the night entry or something like that. We can look into that. And we've been very careful already that on every single floor you come in, it's very open and visible because no places to hide. But also we have bathrooms for public and for adults right in the middle on every single floor. So that no matter where you are and where you know, like if you're part of the public, there's bathrooms on every floor that you can use. Of course, we have the elevators and things like that. And we feel like people will have, at that point, people would have free access to go up and down stairs. If you wanted to keep it just to this floor, I'm sure there's a way for us to stop people from going to the next floor and all of that. But I think that the part of this is that it's a vertical building right here. And the idea is you go up and you go up to the gym and you can use all those spaces. Certainly things like the, you know, private offices and, you know, things like that could just be locked. So certainly that's no big problem right there. Another thing is that we have pretty nice little, you know, conference rooms here. And those are great places to have small meetings and things like that right off of the lobby areas. And lastly, something not to be ignored is that we feel like on all these floors in these areas, we're going to have a lot of display. Now, a lot of that is kind of outreach for the kids, but there's absolutely no reason why, especially during the summer, if you have like an art camp or something, you could have gallery space. This is gallery space. And right outside the art rooms on the 2nd floor, David, if you go up 1 floor, you can imagine maybe a thanks. You know, if you're using in the summer and you're doing art class and crafts, we're going to have display all around here, and they can actually have shows and things like that. And you know, the second floor, maybe we say things like the second floor media center is more for senior and adults and stuff, and it has, you know, because it's bigger kids, maybe it's a little more for bigger people, you know. I think there's a lot of those things we can do. And so now we're thinking about developmentally, not only from kindergarten to fourth grade, but we're talking about multi-generational use. And that just makes us want to be more creative and more interesting. And I think that in our minds, the primary use has to be that it always works for the students, because it's primarily for these teachers and students, but that we can make it work for everybody else in different ways too. Does that make sense that, you know, we kind of have a priority? This is a building for your elementary school students, which is a huge part of the community in the first place. That's my initial thoughts. Anybody else want to offer some ideas? Is anybody here or listening part of an organization or a group? Even, you know, like Scouts or some nature or environmental group or anything else that could envision different ways that you could use this building at different times, even a science club, anything. Daughters of the American Revolution.
Justina, would you like to add something?
Hi, yes, thank you. Funny you mentioned that. I'm actually part of the Girl Scouts organization. I'm also chair of the historical commission, but that aside, it's not related, but I'm also a parent of a 6-year-old at Hadley School and also have a 2-year-old. So potentially could be a student at this school. And funny, we were looking at the pictures and I had my son looking at the photos that you were showing and asking him what are the things that he would like to see. And it made me think, has there been a thought as to whether to sort of like engage with the students and get some of their feedback on what the indoor spaces and outdoor spaces could look like?
You know, it sounds really funny, Justina, because it's usually the first thing we do is like have like talks with the kids and ask them what they want. And I think because of COVID, it just kind of like slipped away. And it seems almost silly when you say it like, of course. So the answer is, let's please figure out some way to get some kids groups together to talk about ideas and all of that.
Hey,
I can't believe it. I can't believe you just told us that.
Except remember the very first idea exchange we had way back in January?
Right.
And
Yep.
we had a kids group. And remember, we had the best things. Remember, someone wanted a go-kart track, and so they had some of the ideas were great. They were so funny, and then they stood up and they presented it like they've been presenting at conferences. They were so cute. But
well, I think like what you showed when you showed just pictures and you just ask, you know, what do you like about these pictures? Like he picked out the round cubby seats in the library, and he picked out like the more colorful, the photographs that had more color in them, which I personally liked as well, because I felt the white, the spaces with the, you know, more white walls was very sterile and almost hospital-like as an adult, but certainly he was drawn to the colors and the shapes. But on the Girl Scout side, I would say we definitely look for community space. We do utilize the high school a lot, the high school cafeteria for our larger events. So this would be another nice space that could accommodate the number of girls with their, you know, parents and leaders and such in the cafetorium.
And it might even be more usable than some of those other spaces, because the platform is just a platform and the space is a little more scaled and for younger humans, you know, not just for like adults, and a little more fun. So it might be more engaging for them anyway.
Right. We also use the senior center. A lot of the troops use the senior center and meet there. And it's actually great. I used to, I had a Daisy troop and we would go on hikes at Jackson Park. So I think this location is great too, because that, you know, blending the nature in would be fantastic.
Hey, Lee, do you think there's a way to create like a survey for kids to take, like where you share a bunch of pictures and they just check off things they like and if they can write about what they like? I mean, is that something we could put together? Is that hard, Katie?
No, the third and fourth grade has gotten very good at their Google Forms. And we could even potentially put together a seesaw for our other littles and have that go right into their assignments if that was something we wanted to do.
It's kind of a great idea. It just
I just thought of that too. I said seesaw. I'll have my son fill out the seesaw activity.
yeah, this is a great idea, Justina.
I'll just make a little seesaw / Google form.
Like maybe find some more pictures, Lee.
Oh yeah, well, there's a
Yeah.
million of them as long as we.
That'd be fan. Yeah, the playground too, because I think he would love
Yes.
to do that. And I echo the sentiment from Joy about the natural playground. We often visit at the Sandwich Heritage Museum and Gardens. They have a really nice outdoor play area for kids, and they have these musical instruments that are made out of, you know, wood and natural materials. And I can say both of my kids, 6 and 2-year-old, are both drawn to those.
Which place was that again? Just so I get it right.
Yep, it's the
Sandwich.
Heritage Museum and Gardens in Sandwich, Massachusetts. They have an outdoor, the musical instruments. They also have what looks like it's like a water well that they can pump water in, and there's, you know, rocks around it, and it's like an outdoor play kitchen, and they have an outdoor arts and crafts area as well.
Yeah, when we met the other night, there was a kind of a consensus that while a lot of playgrounds, and maybe the main playground here would be kind of the modern rubber, you know, rubberized ground and all that for everybody, and it had to be very accessible, that around the building and close to the woods, there should be some more natural play areas where kids can kind of just really connect with, well, we know what kids want to play with, and, you know, just wood and water and sand and climbing and things like that as well.
Yeah, if I remember, they have the I think more like the wood planks as their passage around. It's very pretty. It's very natural, you know, surroundings, so not so structured.
Good.
Thank you, Justina. That was really lovely to have that
And
input.
thank you, everybody, for all of your hard work, because I know what it takes to be a volunteer. It takes a lot of time out of the meetings. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Justina.
My friend Terry, would you like to add something to the community extravaganza?
Sure. Thank you, Katie. And thank you to everyone for spending your time on this important project. I volunteer with the Cub Scout pack in town. We serve children and their families in grades K through 5. And this isn't actually about the building, but we typically use the field for our rocket launch every fall. And we use a model, Estes model rocket A8-3, and we managed to shoot the rockets from the, the baseball diamond near on the Whitman side of the lot, and we go across the lot. So I don't know if you have a lot plan, but how might we continue to make use of Stanley Field, the Stanley open space in that way.
Well, we do have a
I,
lot
of course,
planned.
personally also enjoy the storybooks that the Girl Scout troop has been placing in Ewing Woods. So yeah, great place to congregate outside and make use of the conservation fields. So I guess we could use the play fields.
Yeah, well, what happens is the play fields are smaller than you're used to. I mean, you know, the play field is right now is much bigger along one side, because that's a lot of field, and obviously we have a larger building, and we're trying to get all the traffic, you know, the parking and the traffic on site and stuff too. There's a lot of pressures there, but there'll definitely be kind of a soccer field up there. It's not quite as big as you're used to.
All right, thank you.
David, I
Terry,
think we need,
Terry, while you're here, what kind of indoor space would you be looking at? Like what kind of indoor, if in your dreams, what would the Boy Scouts want for indoor space?
Well, yeah, the Cub Scouts are affiliated with the First Church of Swampscott, and we use their facilities. And we don't have much of a budget, so I guess renting space is not something we've budgeted for in the past.
Right. Well, thank you.
So
Thank you for
that would be a big reach for us. I mean, it'd be great to be able to use this space when school is not in session, I assume. But yeah.
Thank you very much. Lee, Angela Ibolito has a question about the playground. And so the drawing that we have on this design doesn't have like the formal playground, which you just kind of mentioned, like a more things to climb on sort of thing. Do you want to take a moment to talk about what was discussed on Thursday and things people were interested in?
certainly. It's true that I don't have that beautiful drawing on here, but let's go back. Angela's on here. Let's go back to the site. I've saved all that. And Angela, talk. Angela?
Hi, thank you for unmuting me. Yeah, I just thought, I was wondering if I had sort of missed that somewhere, because I can see there are some smaller play areas kind of hugging the building around either end. And there's the field, which is, of course, the town field, which has been there. I don't know what well, we'll get into that after, but you know, my kid went to Stanley, and I know that, you know, that was, I mean, that playground was just, you know, it's the focal point. You know, the kids play on it during recess, in the morning, after school, you know, there all school hours. It was just a wonderful spot for a smaller child playground. And, you know, all the elementary schools have a little playground. So I just assumed there was one. So I thought maybe I was just missing it. So that's kind of one question. And I'll ask you my other question while I'm speaking. So I know that whole, you know, the Stanley School side, which is the side to the right of Whitman Road, and then that side to the left was the town field side. So that was a recreation department, a town-owned field. So I'm just wondering, and I may have missed this as well. I apologize if I have. I'm wondering what the plans are to replace that open space. Thanks.
Well, when we went through all of the choices and what we've done is try to create as much open space as possible with the school, which obviously has a larger footprint, and with the road, you know, the drives through and all of that. And this was actually the design that kept the most open space of all the ones that we looked at. Let me let me kind of map out here what the landscape architect was looking at. Her drawings were more beautiful than mine, but I will just tell you, the first thing she did, this was on last Thursday night, was have this wonderful playground right here. This is what she called the community playground. And this was the playground that had all of like the modern, you know, like the different areas for different kids and structures, and everything is completely kind of ADA accessible for all different uses. And it's right across here. So what happens is it's right next to where you come in, and it's right in the center. So that's kind of the community zone. And then there's a field here, which is a field for you know, a soccer field, elementary school soccer field, right there. And so that was the initial right there, was to get that kind of spaces. And there was a lot of talk when we talked about the exterior about inclusion. So I know that there's going to be lots of parents and families who are going to use that community playground back and forth and the open field. But then what happens is around the building, there's going to be these areas for outdoor learning, some play and outdoor learning around the edges of the building like this for smaller kids. Remember, the kindergarten comes right out and the bigger kids come right out. On the other side, the same kinds of spaces, kind of like outdoor classrooms and learning. We even talked a little bit the other night about the idea of maybe a really adaptable kind of playground, a place for, there's some special education spaces on the first floor here, a place for kids who need, where we have to be really creative to have an outdoor play space for them. Do you know what I mean? To have it, like, really great. And then I think one of the conclusions the other night was then try to have space back here, which gets even more and more natural for the kids. So it's like natural play areas. We're talking maybe water, sand, that kind of stuff that goes right into the woods. You know what I mean? So then you go right out into the woods. And so if I were to draw a diagram of where our play space is, it's around the building and the edge and like across, you know, is more formal. Like the kinds of stuff that you're used to seeing is across the way, you know, up front. But then as it goes to the woods become, well, your kids went to Stanley, right? So they know about the rocks and the story rocks and the wetlands and the trees and the woods and the branches. And to engage that with natural and environmental play, and to use all of those resources, both for curriculum and for just play and learn, you know. That's really the plan. It's not, and we're trying to do things like have, this is a rain garden right here in the front, and that's because we want to have places that we can show, it's basically we're creating a wetland, and that's to clean water and to show people how that an environmentally appropriate way to deal with site. There's a lot of that, and there's definitely limited land. You know, I mean, this is the biggest usable space that we could find that we're actually allowed to use, but it's still about utilizing every square foot best we can and balancing that out. Was that helpful, or do you follow up?
Yeah, it was helpful. Thanks. I guess it kind of brings up some other questions. And yes, I was very interested to know where the playground would be, but I was also kind of questioning, you know, what the plans were for, I guess, replacing some town open space, and if that has been discussed, which has sort of been the practice in the past of, you know, whenever, well, it happened with, you know, the high school, for example, where, there were some open field spaces that are recreation, that, you know, are town spaces, recreation spaces, that we try to replace someplace else. So I did not know whether that conversation had already been had, and perhaps I missed it. I wasn't sure.
it was over the last year, it's pretty much, other than traffic, all we've talked about. It's one of the biggest reasons why we couldn't even build on the middle school site down in those fields, because those are actual town scheduled play fields and baseball and stuff like that. The fields, our understanding, and if someone here is from rec, they can describe it, but the fields at at Stanley are used differently and are not necessarily like, you know, the fields over at the middle school, which were built, you know, on a very different level. So I know that I know that the town is going to try to make up any open space that is taken. I know that there's been already discussions about Hadley site and how that is used for open space. And we also got a letter from the open space committee about this particular site and how they'd like to see it used to its greatest potential. But I can't answer, you know, the exact balance part of it that you're talking about. I know what you're asking, but I can't answer that.
Okay, but I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Oh yeah, you're welcome.
Terry, did you have something that you wanted to add back in again?
Yes, please. I wanted to answer Lee's question. So yeah, for the Cub Scout pack, I've always scheduled with Daniel Strauss of the rec department when we would like to use the Stanley Field. So it's scheduled through the rec department as far as I know. At least that's how I've always approached it. Maybe I don't need to, but.
No, I think she's the right person to contact to schedule the field use.
Yeah, so in that way, it's the same as the middle school fields, right? Please contradict me if I'm wrong.
Oh, no, sorry. I'm nodding my head. Maybe you can't see me. Yes, I'm agreeing with you. Yes, that field has.
So it is a town field scheduled through the rec department.
Yeah.
And there'll be less open space without us creating more open space somewhere else in town with this plan. Thank you.
Oh, Danielle, did you want to talk?
Well, I just wanted to say that I no longer schedule the playing fields, most of the playing fields in town. Stanley, I've still been scheduling that. The athletic director has been doing Phillips and the Diamonds. I have just been handling some of the other stuff like Terry's so Terry doesn't have to go through the athletic department to do that. I just contact them myself and just make sure nobody else is using the field at the time, and then get back to some of these other groups that aren't part of youth sports groups. So I just wanted to clear that up. I also did reach out to Little League today to see what the loss of that playing field, how that would impact them, but I have not heard back. I know that in the past they have used that diamond for some of the younger kids. I'm unaware if they've continued to do that or if they have found another site. So it might be something that we want to check in with them about. I also wanted to, last night, we were talking about the playground and the use of basketball courts. Having basketball hoops, at least there, not a full court, would be favorable. We use it for Park League all the time. The kids love it. They also like space for Foursquare. So if there's some Foursquare space somewhere in this whole site, that would be good too. It's one of their favorite things to do. I just wanted to mention those things.
Thank you. It is that one of the reasons we're having these discussions is to kind of gauge the priorities of both people who run the town and people who live in the town as to what elements are special and utilized all the time. We don't want to build something that a certain element that people don't want turn out that they don't want, in in place of something that, oh, we should have. So I heard you loud and clear about the basketball nets and the Foursquare. Those need to be in there.
Thank you.
And one thing that Lee had talked about on Thursday was maybe putting some sort of backstop in a corner of that big field and potentially having that as it could be a kickball area or a small, so for maybe for the littles, it wouldn't actually change their t-ball needs too much. Like it wouldn't be a formal dirt diamond, but it could be something that could be set up with movable bases or something like that and still have that backstop there for them. So, but that's a great idea to talk to that group and have a conversation with them. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, let's find out if it's for T-ball or something, as someone who went through that whole thing and tried to coach best I could. I do know that things like T-ball and things can be done on a field, and it's a very different kind of equation. And that's how we were approaching it. But I don't want to, I mean, clearly when you redo a site and you move everything around, a lot, also the nature of the kind of space changes. So there's a lot more kind of space around the school that's used for, curricular and outdoor classroom kind of stuff. It's a little different. It's like the inside of the school for education now. There's big rooms and classrooms, but there's a whole bunch of little breakout rooms and and special education rooms and things like that that are used for support that an older school doesn't have. It's the same on the outside, and so some of the space has changed its use and complexion. And what we're trying to do is keep as much open space, but it does get used differently on an elementary school for all the different things that they use it for. And we have talked to physical education as well about their needs for having classes during the day and how much space they need on the inside, the outside, and things like that as well. So I think it's going to be a balance of all these things. We also have people who would love it if we put parking lot over all of it and put as many parking spaces as possible on this site. And we're trying to find a way to get as many while keeping open space and green space. It's quite a balancing act. So I appreciate everyone's speaking up about their own concerns so that we can balance, we can figure out what your priorities are. Somebody next?
Oh, Neil, would you like to speak?
Sharon's her.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. I try to not say too much in these community meetings, but I just had a couple thoughts. On the cafeteria,
let's go in
Cafetorium piece, I'm always interested in that area that's like the stage area and how you have the stairs and like making that sort of flow so the stairs can be like sort of a seating area or something that is kind of more interactive, or so that the stage area is not just this separate space that never gets used or only gets used sometimes and it's kind of separate, to have it kind of more incorporated in that space on a regular basis. So I don't have any real specific suggestions about how it could be used by the community, but I just think that's just a thought for that space. And a real specific idea I was just thinking about for the gym in terms of like what doesn't exist in other spaces is like a rock wall. So just like a real specific idea.
If you don't have a climbing wall, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
We have an idea. We have an emerging idea for the cafetorium, knowing that it's for smaller kids and these are actually platforms and not like stages that are for full productions and things like that, and how to use it in many different ways. So on the right, I started to draw, think of that as a three-dimensional sketch where maybe I have kids, you know, walking in there. They're pretty tiny actually. And the idea is that the stage itself, the platform itself can be used as a platform and open, and it can have, you know, steps on it that you can sit on and all of that. But it can also be used as a place to, and it can be used as a performance place, but you could also put tables up there and things like that. It actually is handicap accessible and and you could have things there. Then we thought about another way to break this whole space up is to have kind of a raised area in the back by the windows where you could have tables and all of that, and a whole bunch of some stairs. Remember, these are only raised like 24, 30 inches. So that you have all these different areas that start to make themselves known in the space and break down the scale, but it also doesn't preclude you from making it a kind of a theater space where you put chairs, because it's higher, all the way like that. And you look at that, or believe it or not, flipping the whole thing. If you have this like huge lineup of kids that are up on this platform, and everybody looks the other way. Do you know what I mean? And we can have different areas, like, so that's just the kind of, I just wanted to say that's a kind of way that we're looking at it, and people are starting to kind of like that. You can imagine that in the back, maybe there's the idea that this is more of a cushy area in the back here for sitting and doing things while the tables are set up in here. And it allows you to have different spaces. And we also do agree that a platform for elementary schools are just used at different times, and it should be able to be used for many things all the time. It's even like, it's like a classroom. And you may actually set something up there that you're doing a project up there if the stage isn't necessary, and you can use it that way. So we want this place to be really open and thoughtful and usable. I hope those sound like interesting ideas for kids.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
Well, Lee,
Jared.
I think you've done it. I think you've answered. I think you've collaborated and consulted.
Well, I mean, I hadn't done this before, but I'm glad that we had that little white space, and I tried to just write down everything we heard. But that doesn't mean that other people, please, you're all part of the community, and you're emissaries who go out there and hear things. And when you hear that people have ideas about how to use something and how to collaborate, and how we should design this building to allow for community use, please write it down and send it out and bring people together. The more people feel like this building is for all of them, I think the better it is. I'm especially intrigued by the whole idea of the kitchen and using it for teaching about food and probably wellness and health and just cooking and things like that. I think that's a really powerful thing in the future for everyone growing up, and it connects with the environment as well. And I think that's a discussion we're going to be having with our food service designer also, to see what we can do with that. Does anybody have any last requests?
Certainly, if you have additional questions or comments or ideas that come to you in the middle of the night, you can email sbc@swampscott.k12.ma.us. And I can promise you that Lee does read pretty much every single email, and by pretty much I mean every single email, and definitely uses them to influence his designs. So if you have more questions, or if you have more ideas for how the community could be integrated into this building, please send the school building committee an email, because your ideas will be used.
That was fun, and thank you so much, everybody, as we move forward.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Off,